watching Drexel Update with Inside Ambition, and in this video I will be interviewing Sarah Resanovich, who is a fellow student right here at Drexel and is also involved with the campus election engagement project, which we'll be getting into in just a second. But before we do all of that, I'd like to remind you guys to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy this video. And if you'd like to see more content like this, make sure you are following us on our Instagram at inside_ambition. So let's get started. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Well, how about yourself?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. So my first question for you is really just, it would be great if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you're doing as a fellow with Campus Election Engagement Project.
Yeah, so I'm a senior here at Drexel. It's my last term, and I've been working with Campus Election Engagement Project since my sophomore year, and that's in conjunction with the Lindy Center for Civic and Great Engagement. So we've been doing everything from prior to the pandemic, dorm storms, where we're registering students to vote. Right now, we've been more focused on education and helping students kind of, you voted in 2020, what do you do next? Because sometimes those next steps are hard to figure out. So we're here to guide you through all the processes from casting your ballot to figuring out how you can get more involved with your community.
Awesome. And that's really great work. And we're definitely going to tell our viewers how to get involved with SEEP if they're interested later on this interview. But first, I want to talk about this article that you wrote in Drexel Now about how students can be more civically engaged in the wake of our upcoming Pennsylvania primaries, which are right on May 18th. And of course, just generally between elections. And for those of you who haven't read it, it will be linked down below in the description. It's definitely an informative read. I encourage it. But in the article, you're talking about how there's usually a lower voter turnout during the off-year elections in between presidential elections. So that's definitely an important concern, considering that the Pennsylvania primaries are coming up right on May 18th. So first of all, could you tell us a little bit about what these primaries are all about and what can voters expect to see on the ballot come May 18th?
Yeah, so primaries are when the parties decide that who they're going to nominate for the general election. So party primary rules vary a little bit state by state. I'm just going to focus on PA for now, but if you have any questions about your state or if you're voting out of state, you can go to rockthevote.org for nonpartisan guides and information. So in Pennsylvania, we have a closed primary system, which means you have to be registered with a party in order to vote in it. So if you're registered with the Democratic Party, you can vote in the Democratic primary and vice versa with the Republican Party. You can't vote in other primaries, and if you're registered as an independent, you can't vote in another party's primary. So it's basically, as I said, primary parties getting a chance to select the candidates they want to put up. Here in Philadelphia, we have lots of interesting races, especially if you're passionate about criminal justice reform. There's many justices going to be on the ballot, depending on where exactly you're voting from. And there's also the DA race, which you'll see on the Democratic ballot. There's two people running. On the Republican ballot, one person's running unopposed. So it's something interesting, and we'll really see the impact of that in our criminal justice reform in Philadelphia and in the state of Pennsylvania.
Awesome. So my next question is really about students, and I'm really just wondering, and I guess a lot of people are wondering, why should students especially get involved and vote in local or municipal elections? What kinds of issues are at stake that would affect students?
But the first thing I always like to say is, as students and as young people, we have our whole lives ahead of us, and we can make an impact on issues ranging from job security to healthcare to the environment, starting with our local officials. So a lot of times when we think of politics, we just think of presidential elections. And although those are super important, the local elections are more likely who you're going to be interfacing with on a daily basis. So in Philadelphia, local officials decide everything from economic relief, COVID restrictions, and also, are you advocating for bike paths? More bike paths in the city is a local issue that impacts students. You can also look at the way that you interact with the community in Philadelphia. Whether you're volunteering or you're just touring the city with friends, you'll notice different parts of the city and how it works. We don't always connect everything back to politics, but it's usually related. Everything from fair funding for our city schools. I'm grateful I'm not from Philadelphia to live in the Philadelphia community, and I want to give back to that, and I want to help create a better future. And voting is one way to do that. And it starts with the local elections. And it's also good because you can get to know the officials.
That's so true. I mean, I definitely agree. There's always an issue out there that someone will be interested in. And those are all just such great points. But, to entertain the other side for a second, play a little devil's advocate. I know a few non-voters, and many of them actually believe their vote doesn't make any difference because They think there are thousands of people voting. There can be millions of people voting if it's a national election. So at the end of the day, they don't think it'll make a difference whether or not they're involved. So I guess I'm asking, how would you respond to the naysayers about voting?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is the point I hear a lot is something you brought up. So many people are voting. Why does it matter if I vote or not? You're not alone in thinking that. Contrary, there's a lot of non-voters who think the same way. So you're taking yourself out of the process. You're not allowing yourself a voice when you have that right. I think also local elections are a great place to start for people who are hesitant to see if their vote counts or not. It's a smaller pool of people who are voting on these issues. So you get to see firsthand that your vote really does matter. And I know that can feel a little detached because sometimes we can feel really distant from the systems that we feel are in our government. But really, those small local elections, they can be decided. There's been thousands of cases across the country where, single digit numbers has made a difference between the person who went, you know what, I'm tired, I'm not going to go to the polls, or I'm not going to sign up for an absentee ballot. It really does add up, especially in districts like University City, which are majority student based. You have a lot of student residents, and together you have a voice. You just have to use it.
Yeah, that's so important because our vote always means a lot more than we think it does, in the grand scheme of things. But moving on to another question, one way you talk about in your article to be civically engaged is by keeping up to date with current events and finding unbiased news outlets. But then I guess the other thing comes up is that there's such an information overload out there these days. And I guess it can be hard to know sometimes whether an article is partisan or nonpartisan. So, how would you recommend students go about finding good, reliable news sources they can consult?
Yeah, I think it's really important to develop media literacy. We're so consumed by media all the time, it can be hard to tell a good source from a bad source. So that means talking about the issues and really taking a deep dive. If you see, you're scrolling on Instagram or Facebook and you see an article pop up with kind of a catchy headline, actually click on the article, make sure that you see what the source is. If you've never heard of the website before, what you can do is copy and paste the title and put it in Google. Sometimes it'll immediately pop up with, this is fake news from a reliable source, or you can find out other sources actually confer it and confirm and build on the story. So I think it's looking at lots of different news articles. What I like to do is I like to have multiple news alerts set up on my phone because I know I'm not always going to be able to go through and read all these articles on one issue. So I have like New York Times, NPR, the Wall Street Journal, really trying to get a wide variety of resources so I can see, oh, okay, all these headlines are showing up. This is something I should look into.
Absolutely. I agree. It's so important to get both sides of an issue and try to understand the pros and cons on what both sides are saying. And another thing you talk about is holding, of course, our representatives accountable because we voted them in and they have a responsibility to serve us. So, what are some ways that we can reach out to our elected officials about issues that we care about?
So the first thing to do is just start off, Google the elected official's name and their title position. It'll come up with their contact information. So there's going to be a couple ways you can get in touch with them. First is just picking up the phone. You can, if you're a little phone shy, you can always leave a message, but most likely you'll talk to one of their constituent representatives and you can have a good conversation and really express your opinions. If you're a little nervous about calling on the phone, which I totally get, there's a mailing address, so you can write a physical letter, and a lot of times you'll get letters in return. So I just recently wrote my state senator about an issue that's being affected in New York State where I'm from, and I actually got a handwritten letter back. So a lot of the times, if you write that handwritten letter, they're not used to getting it. So they want to return it back. They also usually have an email, which is a super, it takes 5 minutes to express your issue and you can really make an impact. If you want to go a step further, you can work with organizations or gather a group of your friends or family who are passionate about an issue and actually lobby the congressman or senator directly. So I've had success with this. We most recently, I went with a group of friends to talk about some environmental issues that we were passionate about. And it was a 30-minute meeting. We gave a presentation and then we follow up with them to continue to hold them accountable.
That's so wonderful. And I'm glad you mentioned, you got a handwritten letter back. And that just goes to show that our representatives care a lot more than sometimes we might think they do. And really, my final question for you is where should students look to get involved with SEEP, of course, and other civic engagement opportunities around them?
So we actually are really exciting. We're hiring a SEEP fellow for Drexel University campus for next year. If you have any interest in that, you can reach out to the Drexel Votes Instagram or the Lindy Center directly. The Lindy Center is a great source for information and volunteering opportunities, whether you're interested in working with SEEP and doing student civic engagement or any other resources. You can really go to them. If you go to their website, all the contact information will be there and you can get really involved.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And thank you for sitting down and talking about, I think, this really important issue about voting. We should definitely get more people and students to vote. I absolutely believe that. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I just want to let you know, if you'd like to see more videos like these, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, and of course that you are following us on Instagram at inside_ambition. All right, guys, thank you so much, and we hope to see you in the next one. Bye.